So guys, at Green Homes Australia, we've had our processes internationally accredited by the ISO Standards Organisation. It's important that you understand and apply the training principles well in these projects. So please pay attention in the training. I wish you the best of luck and get in touch with us at head office if you've got any questions at all.
Whatever motivation brought you to being a green builder, it's important that you can talk about what a green home is. And really, there's a lot around it, but ultimately it comes down to a few really simple principles. The first thing, they're tailor-made for their local conditions. They use less energy to run. They've got a reduced impact on the environment right the way through from building to eventually when the house gets knocked down. And ultimately, they're healthier to live in. So let's break each of those down a little bit. Being tailor-made for local conditions is important. At the moment, you can drive from Hobart to Darwin and see the same houses built in any particular environmental condition, subject to some small variations in basics or the state-based building codes. That's the same sort of house. It's actually madness, really. And back in the olden days, we used to actually make a Queenslander in Queensland because that particular design is much more comfortable and lower energy to live in. It's sort of like we've turned that on its head and people design by just style and what they think is a nice home rather than what is actually a good home for that environment. And while energy was cheap, it didn't matter. But now that energy is not cheap, it really matters. And if you're in a house that is not designed to make the most of the local environmental conditions, you will pay more. There's no getting around it. You will have to pay more to be comfortable in that home. So what we do at Green Homes Australia and what Skillset teaches is actually designing to respond to that local environment. So if you know there's a sea breeze, design to take advantage of the sea breeze. If you know that it's really hot and humid, don't put heavy stuff in there that is going to stay hot all night. If it's really cold, make sure your insulation's right, make sure you get access to the north. All those things which we'll explore more through this training. But that's important to know. So when you're talking to a client about this, you need to understand that that home has been designed by Green Homes Australia specifically to respond to the local environmental conditions. Green homes use less energy to run. And what that actually means is because, as we've discussed, it's designed for the local conditions, you won't have to turn a switch on as often. Or if you do, the machine, whatever you've turned on, will stay on for not as long. It's pretty simple to achieve this. There are orientation, insulation, thermal mass, breezeways, principles which we'll explore, which basically show that for most of the time, a building can be pretty comfortable. And really, you're only looking at turning a heater or a cooler on to adjust the extremes. So that's what that means. Green homes, well designed, well built, will use less energy to run, and ultimately that's cheaper. And really you can turn that into a payback period. Your house might cost a little bit more for things like double glazing, but you can actually calculate how that money is going to pay off in a period of time because you'll have reduced heating bills, for example. Green homes have a reduced impact on the environment, and what that means is that every single product that's gone into that home has had some thought around what it has done in its manufacture, production, use in the home and eventual disposal. We take the view that we don't want building houses in Australia to result in poor people in faraway countries having rubbish lives. So we make sure that it is, for example, that the timber is sustainably harvested and grown as much as is possible. We want to make sure that the paints are non-toxic in their production and their use and their eventual disposal. There's a whole range of materials and material choices which we'll get into later in the training. But we really want to make that point to say that it's not just about the energy use, it's about the entire environmental impact of that home. So we really design for that too. Green homes are healthier to live in. How can we say that? Well, because the home has been built to take advantage of the environment, you've got more time, I guess, with the doors and windows open, more time with natural light, and more time being around products that are not off-gassing, carcinogenic, chemicals, volatile organic compounds. So we know for a fact that people who live in green homes tend to be healthier and happier. A well-designed house is better for the mind and body. So in many ways, a green home is just like any other home. And you can have the most beautifully designed green home in the world and still really annoy your clients by getting it wrong. So the question we need to ask is, how do you ensure that your client gets a high quality, high performance green home? Well, luckily for you, a lot of the thinking has been done back at head office. And that means that the plan has been developed with the client and responding to the local environmental conditions and all of that. So the first thing you can do is actually build to the plan. And I know that sounds kind of simple, but things are where they are for a good reason. So if you decide, and you might be talking to the client, or whoever, you decide, well, actually, no, we don't need to do that there, just think twice, because there might be a very good reason that that is there. And you would need to talk to Green Homes and talk to head office before making any changes to the plan, because that could actually interfere with the performance of the home. Some of the other things are really don't relate necessarily to Green Homes specifically. It's just building properly. Don't cut corners. You know, we're not expecting any builder to do any sorts of substitution for materials. We certainly don't want inferior quality products or workmanship in anything associated with the Green Homes brand. So it's really important that you take this job on with an element of pride and really seek to build the best home possible. And that means also things like, I mean, you know this, but looking after your subbies, making sure they do what they do, turn up on time, do the right job, do the quality. You know, this green home is you know, we're not banging out millions of these at the bottom end of the market. This is a great home and needs to have that kind of attention to detail that is required for any great home, be it green or not. So, you know, looking after the details is really important. Using quality approved materials is really important. And yeah, as I say, just build to the plan. Like, make sure that you deliver what has been promised to that client, and follow the systems and processes that have been developed and which you'll learn today.